is Russia continuing to throw its troops into Avdiivka for no meaningful gain? Plus, is Putin using Ukraine as the backdrop for his presidential campaign? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's December 9th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first taking a look at the control map. The biggest changes are twofold. The first is outside here of Klitschivka. You can see that, and Avdiivka. Oh my gosh, I swear I can talk today. As you can see, there is what looked like some sort of gain here by Russian forces, but it's pretty marginal. You can see here that Russian forces losing control of this small windbreak here. It's now listed as contested, even as they advance into this forested area on the eastern side of this reservoir. And so it's probably a net gain for Russia of a few dozen meters, but it's hard to know. Sometimes the specific details of these sort of positions can change the math, so to speak. Again, if this is an elevated position looking down on a reservoir, which is often the case actually, as we talk about water formations, just because of physics and geography, naturally sort of pool in low ground. So it's very possible that Ukrainians have actually seized high ground relative to Russian forces who've taken this low ground here. It's also worth noting, of course, Ukrainian forces defending this little chunk of territory here are not in a great geographic position simply because they are limited in where they can maneuver, even though these Russian forces here are perhaps even more limited. So this is a tight corner to have to fight in for either side. But again, it almost is as though Russian forces sort of traded tit for tat or voluntarily almost withdrew from this sector and filled in the other. But you can see in the grand scheme of cutting off Avdiivka, Russia's probably moving away from their objective. Again, they need to cut off the roadways that allow Ukrainian troops to be resupplied inside the cauldron, so to speak. And this is actually on the road to some of these towns. You can see northwestern Avdiivka here. They're now further away from that, and all they've really attained is sort of this tough to fight in pocket with just two windbreaks and some roadway. It's not really moving them towards their objective. So again, not really anything to write home about. The other change is near Klitschivka. And you can see that this actually reports that an additional territory, the heights outside the city, you can see this all being hilltops, is now contested. Russian forces looking to retake Klitschivka, likely by pushing through and seizing these heights outside the town, which will then become support by fire positions as Russian forces try to clear out the town of Klitschivka itself. So the fighting, of course, you're likely going to see an increase in the fighting around here as this becomes contested once again, followed by ground forces attempting to take Klitschivka itself. Do I think Ukrainian forces are going to roll over and let this happen? Probably not. They're going to be really tough to dislodge, and you can see Russian forces really haven't dislodged them yet. Roads generally cutting through kind of low ground here, and the vast majority of these heights still held by Ukrainian forces. So a not really any good news for Russia, which is telling because, as you can see from the map here, Russian forces launching 77 combat engagements. Again, probably around a 30 to 50% increase in total engagements by Russian forces. You can see the Russian forces are heavily concentrating their efforts from Donetsk to Avdiivka, but you see how very little they achieve as a result of this. And it's a sign, again, that similar fighting is happening in the Klitschivka area, and you're seeing a similar outcome, right? A lot of volume, a lot of Russian forces going into the fight, very little to show for it. In fact, if you exclude Avdiivka and Klitschivka, you just have one engagement near Verbova, an engagement near this town near Spirna, and two in the north. And that's it, right? So Russian troops, right, producing a high volume of action, but not necessarily producing any kind of big returns, even though Russia's finally learned its lesson about concentrating its forces. What I also thought was interesting is that as we talk about, winter season is firmly here, and Russian forces are again trying to attrit Ukrainian will to fight and sort of work through some deep strike tactics to sort of weaken Ukraine's ability and will to fight. And they're relying on cruise missiles launched from Russian bombers. Of course, Ukrainian air defense is taking out 14 of 19 missiles shot. Of those headed to Kiev, 100% were taken out, but there are some strikes that have made it through. Again, in all likelihood, this is just indicative of Russian tactics pivoting back to a sort of more traditional format. Right? Something that we saw last winter: deep strikes, targeting infrastructure, really trying to run the Ukrainians out of their own stamina and focus. Now, if you guys are like me, the holidays are an exhausting time, right? You have to deal with family members who all have their own brilliant takes on the Ukraine war, that they're just repeating the talking points they saw on a 15-minute news segment. So if you need the energy to deal with it, I've got the solution. This is Strike Gum. I worked with a manufacturer in Denver, Colorado. It's made right here in the USA. It is the ultimate energy drink alternative. I used to have to drink energy drinks to maintain my focus, my energy during long patrols in Afghanistan and even stateside. But energy drinks are loaded with sugar. They leave you feeling bloated. They are like $5 a pop now. It's absolutely crazy. So I figured out a way to take the same caffeine as a Monster, as an Amp Energy, and put it in an individual piece of Strike Gum. And we also have 100 milligrams of alpha GPC for further cognitive focus and enhancement. The best part is that 50% of the profits from this first production run are getting donated to charities that benefit Ukrainian civilians who have been injured or displaced in the conflict. And here's the thing. If you do the math, right, this pack of gum, this contains 5 energy drinks worth of caffeine, right? So instead of spending $25 on energy, right, on energy drinks at a gas station, this is going to run you like $6.99. But the tray is an even better deal. 75 pieces, right? If you're an energy drink every day kind of guy, this works out to just 90 cents a piece, 90 cents per energy drink really is what it's substituting. And it's even less because we have a military discount, right? And also if you log in and sign up for the special offers, there's like another 10% you can get. So this is definitely the time to pick it up, guys, if you were thinking about ordering or reordering. Check us out at strikegum.com. Now let's talk about the election, not the U.S. presidential election, though I'm sure we'll be talking about that as it gets closer to election season and things get even more bizarre. No, I mean the other election season. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced his presidential bid for 2024. This occurred earlier today. Right? Obviously a staged, managed affair to make it seem like he was begged to run by Russian servicemen who just needed his strength and leadership. It's so fucking patronizing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to act like Putin's the only one who does this. All the autocrats and a lot of U.S. politicians are also guilty of just staged, managed, cringeworthy nonsense. But actually, Putin was asked by the commander, Artem Soga, of the DNR Republic's Sparta Battalion, which is strange because that's a relatively small formation. It wasn't even the president of the DNR itself. And he claimed that the people of the Donbas wanted him to run in the elections, which again is weird because, before the war started, the people of Donbas weren't even Russian citizens, right? They're Ukrainian citizens. And of course, he begged Putin to integrate the occupied Ukrainian territories and restore peace. He means integrate them into Russia, which is, again, insane to think that somebody's coming in and being like, please colonize me. Like, what the fuck? Like, really, guys? Like, please annex our territory. We'd love to have our ancestral lands held by a foreign occupier, imperial power. We can't wait. Of course, Putin's announcement, the Kremlin's spokesman claimed that Putin's announcement was totally spontaneous and a reaction to the people's appeal. Again, this is like rest in power to Prigozhin, who was, I'm joking, he's a war criminal and monster, but the man knew how to make actual believable like content. Like, yeah, his videos were funny, goofy. He spoke off the cuff. He didn't pretend to be somebody he wasn't. Like there was like, imagine if Prigozhin was pretended to be like a cook, like a line cook or something. And he was like, oh, shucks, I'll take over Wagner for you. Like, no, that's completely absurd. Right? He was honest. He's like, I'm a billionaire. I run a private military company. This is my job. And like, you know, it would be less stupid if Putin was to be like, I'm here to announce that I'm running for president. We're in the middle of a war. And I'm the best choice. Thank you. Like, that's fine. Like that's probably what Putin really believes. So anyway, this is just absolutely preposterous. One Russian battalion commander responded to Putin's announcement, claiming that although the results of the elections are already known, quote, the process needs to be arranged appropriately, unquote. Gotta love a stage-managed election. Nobody's even pretending anymore. Well, but this is the most Russian thing that I can think of. Actually, the second most Russian thing. The most is, of course, the Russian troops just seem to be fixated. Following, as we talked about, they just keep throwing troops into Avdiivka. Let's see if we can actually get if they will report estimates of the actual casualties. They're like eye-watering. It's like thousands and thousands of soldiers. Now, it's apparently these attacks are smaller groups trying to capture much smaller area. And Russian forces apparently relying on one-way drones and aviation assets to achieve this. Here we go. Interesting. And it says that actually in the last 24 of those 77 attacks, it looks like about 50 were in Avdiivka alone, guys. So everywhere else on the front has only half the attacks that Avdiivka has received alone. Wild stuff, guys. Wild stuff. Anyway, that's all I had for you. Thank you so much. Thank you to our Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com, our Lieutenant tier members. I really couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate you so much, and I will see all you guys in the next one. Cheers.